Welcome, viewers for the YouTube channel Lex Consilium Foundation. I'm Major General Neelendra Kumar here with Air Marshal Raghunath Nambiar. You would have watched the earlier videos. Now, we have covered the Kargil, we have covered Balakot, we have covered your Israel impression and the test pilot. My last question is, any other memory, because these you responded to the questions that I had put to you. Now, from your side, anything that you would like to share with the viewers, your memory of your Mirage days,
So not that you
and
brought,
any anecdote? Yes.
now that you bring it out, I would like to tell you about something which happened in the very beginning of the Kargil war. Well,
Right.
before we actually started dropping bombs or doing anything, one of the requirements of Kargil at that time, we were, doing things in a very sort of, or to put it, what I would put would be a very systematic fashion. Since we had not operated in the Kargil in the terrain, we were airlifted in an N-32 from Adhampur to Srinagar, where we were briefed on what was happening. At that point in time, you will recollect we had lost two fighter aircrafts and a helicopter had just gone down. Indian Armed Forces had taken a 36 hours pause. The Indian Air Force had taken a 36 hours pause from operations, sort of get fixed on what had happened and how do we get out of this sort of a scenario and work towards victory. I mean, given that fact, we have put in a strategic pause. And that's when we landed up at Srinagar. This was on the 29th of, and we were put into two helicopters, both of them Mi-17s, because we were not more than 12 of us. There was no requirement to put in two helicopters. We could have split us into, taken us all in one helicopter.
Right.
But given the fact that this was a war area and we were very important assets being pilots of Mirage 2000, we were split into
Matter of
two.
abundant caution.
Absolutely, as a matter of caution.
Yes.
We were put into two helicopters to take into the battlefield to see for ourselves what was the terrain and get briefed by local commanders as to what was happening. It just so happened that when we got into the aircraft, it had the pilots were started putting on bulletproof, patkas, which was used by the infantry in those days. It used to consist of a slab of metal in a bag like a uniform like thing in the front, while we were wearing just simple white, plain blue overalls, which was the way it was. And despite it being very cold, we were actually based in Adhampur and we had sort of been pulled out in a jiffy without much warning, and therefore none of us had even a jacket to put on. We just sort of
No winter clothing.
nothing. We just reached the place and we got airlifted out. We reached somewhere near Kargil. However, there was artillery shelling from across the border. The aircraft turned around and landed at Mataya. Mataya was the div headquarters of, if I remember correct, a mountain div, I think 8 mountain div.
Yes.
With Major General Mohinder Puri,
Yes.
who was the div commander.
Right.
And we were all, we landed in a helipad near Mataya and were escorted and told, come and have a cup of tea in the ops room of the div headquarters, which was located here. We got a shock of our life when General Puri briefed us on what was happening there. We had sort of assumed that, we knew where the enemy was. All that was left us to do was to throw them out. What we realized in the ops room was that we had no surety of what was happening actually. We did not know which hilltop was captured by the enemy, which hilltop was unoccupied. We had no clue. And at that point in time, this was on the 29th of May, what was happening was at the div level, they were, inducting troops. They're asking various battalions located various places. So to send patrols up each hilltop to see for themselves whether it was occupied or it was free. That was the sort of scenario where we were. The briefing was very nice.
Information about presence of enemy or otherwise.
There was no information. We were only knew, yes, Tiger Hill there was somebody. Tololing there was somebody. This is a sort of scanty, sporadic information. But whatever the other hilltops, were they manned, were they unmanned, were they free from enemy, we had no clue. So that was the sort of level of knowledge.
Stayed at that point of time, yes.
Exactly. That was the 29th of May. That was, I think, probably something which probably most of us are all aware of, this lack of knowledge and how things slowly started getting filtered in. The surprised element was just taking part. Though by the 15th and 16th of May, I believe, the information of the enemy having come into our area was well known. And
it had started trickling in.
Exactly, Edgar.
Yes.
But what I would like to bring about is the issue of what I talked about, the interesting part. After all this was over, we started walking towards the helicopter, which is about 1.5 kilometers away. Plain terrain, and it was just the aircraft was very clearly visible. And as we were walking towards the aircraft, after a refreshing cup of tea, and we're somewhere close to the aircraft where we could see about 4 or 5 ambulances
Yes.
which were coming down the hill and coming down into the Mataya Valley. These ambulances, seeing the helicopter, came towards the helicopter, and sure enough, we discovered that these were all people who had been injured, seriously injured
Serious
in the
casualties.
serious battle casualties from the Tololing operations, which were now on their way back to Srinagar. From Matayan, if they were to go by these ambulances, they would have taken them another 3 or 4 days more,
Yes.
given the terrain and the sort of congestion in the Zojila Pass and all the other problems which are happening. They asked our helicopter pilots if we could take in 6 each into each of the helicopters, and I think our pilots readily agreed. Now, we had, instead of 6 of us in the helicopter, we had 12 of us. I'm talking of passengers in the helicopter, and we got airborne and we headed for the Srinagar hospital.
Right.
The MH at Srinagar, Command Hospital at Srinagar. I beg your pardon, the military hospital at Srinagar.
Yes.
Over the sound of the helicopter blades, I was sitting adjacent to a young Jawan, probably about 22 years old. I was then almost 40. I was a wing commander. So I noticed that this guy was like, he had just a plain jacket on, a camouflage jacket, which is generally worn
Yes.
by the army, sort of a coat parka like thing
Yes.
with dirty white collars. He was wearing one jungle boot, while the other jungle boot was tied to his belt. So I asked him, over the noise of the helicopter, it was very difficult to converse.
Yes.
So I asked him what happened, where is he injured? He just showed me his leg, which had been, an AK-47 round had probably, or some weapon round had entered his leg, shattered his heel bone, and had gone through the shoe, and he was carrying that shoe back with him, with him tied to his belt. So I asked him, what are you taking this shoe for? He says, no, I'm taking it home so that I can show it to my mother.
Okay.
Now, here the youngster has lost his foot, and I think probably has lost his career in the army because the wounds were very grievous. Here he was. I was thinking probably he's taking it back to return the boots to his quartermaster. The jungle boot, in that terrain where you were expecting temperatures of -20. Here, a guy who was wearing jungle boots and was taking this home. I thought it very poignant, and I thought it
Something
extremely
unforgettable.
unforgettable. I remember it as vividly as anything else that I do remember. And I remember the cheer on his face and this happiness that he was alive and he was going back. His face was half blown away because of the cold. The immediate layer of the front skin,
Yes.
the cheeks, everything had already been rubbed away because of the abrasive, speed of winds, and it was all pink and bloody, the entire face. But here he was still smiling, and I think that was the
Cheerful.
spirit of the Indian Army and the Indian Armed Forces.
Remarkable. Astounding.
I remember this very vividly. We dropped him off at Srinagar Hospital, and he was picked up
92
in
base hospital. Yes. That's astounding. But that is the spirit indomitable of the soldiers. Any other impression that you would like to share?
Vividly recall the fact that we are part of a great country. We are part of a big democracy, and I think Indians, we have come together as a great nation, and all of us strive to make ourselves that much more better and succeed as a nation. And I think all these blips in our history, Kargil and Balakot and Ops, these are all elements which strengthen our resolve to work that much harder to make our country succeed. That's what India is all about.
Thank you very much, Raghu. It's been a pleasure. Great information talking to you. And thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.